All right, welcome into the debut episode of IDP Drafts. I am your host for this episode, Josh Raymer of the IDP Show. So excited to be joined tonight by three of the best IDP drafters in the world. Going around the horn here, kicking things off, it is Evan Ringler.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Below him is Eric Harms.
Thanks for having me. I'm just happy to be next to Adam so I can snipe and make him want to choke me.
Make him not get Van Ginkel and all of his little darlings this offseason, Eric. That's what you're here for. That's why I put you there. And next to Eric is David Kelly.
Hey, I'm happy to be back on the YouTubes one more time.
We're happy to have that handsome face with us here tonight, David. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us. We wanted to launch this show to talk more about IDP best ball and to get better as a collective, as an IDP populace, at doing these sorts of drafts. So that's going to be the point of this show. We're going to be going from now through the rest of the off season, and every episode is going to be focused on some form or facet of IDP best ball. And we're even going to have some combined best ball talk in here because Professor IDP just launched some combined IDP offensive drafts that are filling up and been a lot of fun so far. So the rest of this offseason, we really look forward to having these episodes with you all. There'll be plenty of live streams. We're going to be doing mock drafts. We're going to be doing roster construction. We're going to be talking about player exposure, all sorts of fun stuff. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, youtube.com/@theIDP show. And this will also be a podcast feed as well. We'll tweet out the link once the episode is over. So tonight, for our maiden voyage, our debut episode, we will be doing the first 8 rounds of an IDP Madness mock draft. This is the biggest, as far as we know, IDP best ball tournament in the world. It'll be kicking off here in the next week or so. We'll be starting to fill those leagues. Last year it was 12 leagues with 12 participants each, so 144 teams. Evan, explain to us what is the difference between the typical IDP only best ball drafts that we've been doing and the IDP Madness format.
Yeah, so most of the best ball drafts that we've been doing are 31 rounds, and we have 16 starters total. And the only difference for IDP Madness is that we shorten it to 24 rounds, and we remove 2 flex spots. And this actually has the impact of boosting the linebackers' value up a little bit because those flex positions are usually dominated by the D linemen. So yeah, it's very similar, but I plan to prioritize linebacker a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. Evan, Theo says, yo, excited for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, Theo. We're excited as well. And gentlemen, what do you say we jump right into it? We're going to do, again, the first 8 rounds, and then there will be another team of 4 drafters breaking down the middle 4 rounds, and then another group of 4 breaking down the last 8 rounds. So we will have this thing chunked up into thirds, different groups breaking down while they're on the clock how they're drafting for that third of the draft. So I'd say, boys, let's kick things off and get this thing rolling. So we are going to start the draft, and we are going to pull in this here so you can see this beautiful draft board. And Evan, you are on the clock with the 101, and this is actually, I think, an interesting discussion. Who are you going with at the 101?
I don't think it's an interesting discussion at all. I think it's TJ Watt pretty easily. He's got that real game-breaking ability that not many people have. Last year he was a true outlier, and pretty good chance that he does that again this year.
All right, so TJ Watt at 101. Eric, is TJ Watt your 101 in these drafts?
Yes, he is. I've been taking him whenever I can, especially in the IDP Madness when he's got a little bit more flexibility too with the dual Desi. Just a little extra bonus. I would take him even without that, though.
Yeah, and David, is he your 101 as well?
No, I've never been able to wrap my head around TJ Watt.
We got a hater in the room, folks. Why? Is it just the injury stuff, or what's the concern?
It's just that he's always been someone who is this like very efficient converting pressures to sacks, but just never has like the elite PFF stuff backing him that some of these other guys do. But at some point, I guess you just have to accept that he just is that type of player who's very efficient in that manner. But I have a hard time drafting him.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
you're right.
I'm TJ Watt as well. I think the other one in play is Micah Parsons for me. But anytime I've been on the at the 101, which has not been very often, yeah, I'm going with TJ Watt as my 101 as well. But Evan, what would you say to David's comment there?
Totally valid. I mean, the advanced metrics aren't really there. I would also throw Crosby in there as a floor play. I think he's got a really high floor with all the snaps that he plays. But it could be Myles Garrett, it could be Hutch, it could be any of them. You know.
I think the dual desi is an important note here because of the fewer roster spots that you have. I think dual designation takes on more importance in IDP Madness. It saved my bacon. Last year, I won District 11. My linebackers were terrible. I had Devondre Campbell and someone else that was not very good or got injured or something like that. And it was Khalil Mack that saved my bacon. I think he was in that linebacker spot pretty much every week for me. So, yeah, I think dual desi definitely takes on more added significance in this format since we have fewer roster spots to play with. So, got a couple picks here, gentlemen, and real quick, a question from Freddie. Can you explain scoring? This is an easy one, Freddie. It's Big 3 scoring. You can find the settings for that over at theidpshow.com to see all the scoring settings. But it's a big play type of IDP scoring. So couple of picks here, though, gentlemen. Max Crosby goes to Jeff at the 102. Johnny goes with Foye at 103. Eric, what do you think about Johnny going with the LB1 at the 103?
That's higher than I would take him, but to some extent, it's also hard to argue with. Foye's been an outstanding scorer the last several years, so everybody builds their team a little bit different.
Yeah, what do you think, Evan? Would you go linebacker 103?
I don't think I have the balls. It's a bold choice, and I respect it because, like we said, the linebackers are very valuable in this format. And we know that Foye is going to be either the LB1 or the LB2. So
I think it's important. Yeah, I think it's important to note. Adam brought this up on one of the last episodes we just did. I think Foye was overall IDP 3, and like IDP 6 in Big 3 scoring the last 3 years. So, I mean, you can make a case that he's worth it going at the 103 if he's finished there 2 of the past 3 seasons. So, David, you're actually on the clock. Take us inside that beautiful brain. TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Foye Oluokun off the board. 1, 2, 3. What you thinking here?
Yeah, for me, and we touched about this maybe a little bit with TJ Watt, but for me, the first 6 edge rushers are all pretty like interchangeable to me to the point where like I don't really feel like getting into big fights over who I think is the best one or not. Like they just all seem very similar to me. Given who's fallen to me here, I kind of like Micah Parsons, so that's who I'll take. And with Parsons, he's a guy who just, I mean, he's been dumped on a little bit by the community as a whole, just because he was #1 pick in a lot of drafts last year, and he didn't quite fulfill on that. But I think he was still DL7 in our scoring. But 100 pressures last year in PFF during the regular season, that is not a joke. There's very, very few players who've hit that mark. Max Crosby hit that the year before he truly broke out for a DL1 finish. So yeah, I like Parsons here, but I don't really have too much of it. For me, it's very much splitting hairs whether you like him or Hutchinson or Garrett or Bosa at this point.
Yeah. I like it. That would be probably my 102. So to get him at 104, I think is pretty nice.
Yeah, I love that. Here's a little nugget for you. When you look at edge rushers with more than 500 snaps, you had Micah 19.9% pressure rate. Second place, Josh Allen at 17.5. So just a massive gap there.
Yeah, Josh Hines Allen, right? Isn't that the new?
Yeah.
Yeah.
New name, yeah.
Changed the moniker today, which makes me a little nervous. I'm getting like Shaq Leonard flashbacks here when he's, went from Darius to Shaq and fell off a cliff with his play. So we'll see how it goes. But I know stat heads are rejoicing because we no longer have to pick out if it's the defensive or offensive Josh Allen. So, all right. So, David, you go with Micah Parsons, 104. Nick Bosa goes 105. No surprise there. Roquan Smith goes to the Green Dot King. So, we've got 2 linebackers off the board inside the first 6 picks. And now I am up with the 107. So help me out here, boys. I'm kind of torn because Myles Garrett, who we talked about is kind of in that big 6 group of edge rushers, right, is still on the board, still available. But you also have my personal man crush in Aiden Hutchinson. So what I'm kind of leaning here is Hutch over Garrett. I mean, that end of the season finish for Aiden Hutchinson was absolutely bonkers. So, Evan, who would you go with here at 107? Hutch or Garrett?
They are interchangeable for me. I would lean Hutch, but I don't really feel strongly at all.
Eric, what about you? Hutch or Garrett? Or somebody else?
I lean towards Garrett here.
Okay. I was going to say, I wanted to pull up his finish. So he had, by Big 3 scoring, 275.25 points last year, whereas Aiden Hutchinson had 284.2. So outscored him by about 9 points. So, David, what about you? Hutch, Garrett, or door number 3?
Either or. I think they give you two different things. Like Myles Garrett was incredibly efficient from a win rate and pressure perspective. The thing that's really intriguing about Hutchinson, though, is just how much he played last year. Like he played 986 snaps. That's getting into like the Max Crosby territory of just like incredible floor while still maintaining like a really nice ceiling. Because Crosby himself, at least the last couple of years, hasn't been like a total monster for pressures and things like that. But when you play that much, it's just hard not to score boatload of points. So it's kind of, they both have interesting different paths of getting there.
All right, Hutch it is. The volume, I think, was the point that sold it for me. So we are now over to Bobo at 108, and then Adam, and then Eric, you will be up. Who do you think's going to be in range for you there at 110, Eric?
Right now I'm hoping Myles Garrett, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, hey, Will Anderson goes at 108. Bobo continues to be just provocative with his IDP best ball picks this offseason. So you love to see that.
He wasn't one of my 3, so.
Yeah, Adam here probably, I was going to say it's definitely going Myles Garrett. I would have been shocked if he did not go. I think that's the latest I've seen Garrett go is 109, pushed back because of the 2 linebackers. So, hey, Jeff, kicking in a comment here. Boo Bam says, Eric, you can always go with Kayvon Thibodeau, one of your favorites. Adam chiming in says,
5th round yet.
Very kind of y'all. We just let Adam keep getting away with this. Somehow the man just got Myles Garrett at 109. I don't like this at all. This episode is canceled. Thank you all for tuning in. Eric, take us inside your thought process here. What are you thinking about on the clock 110?
For me here, it's between Joshua Hines-Allen or Danielle Hunter right now. Be the 2 I'm looking at. Hines-Allen had a career year last year. So I think he can repeat it. Danielle's been a little more steady over the years. So I think I'm actually going to lean towards Hunter on this one.
All right, so Danielle Hunter goes 110. Theo says, wasn't Bobby just saying to take Khalil Mack over Will Anderson? Yes, Theo. Now you're starting to understand this is all a long con to get Bobby to have his picks fall to him. We are all just messing with you guys to get the picks that we want in IDP Madness. So, okay, Jake is up here at the 111, and then we have Jackson at the 112. So, gentlemen, talk to me about something I wanted to bring up here. And Evan, we'll start with you on this. How do you feel about going DB earlier just because of the fact that this is 7 rounds shorter than our typical IDP-only best ball drafts?
I think it's actually kind of the opposite for me. I think I'll probably go DB. Like I'll think about early DB even less, just because those guys that you're getting by around 24, I still feel so good about those guys. You can get like a Keyshawn Nixon like the 12th or 14th sometimes, or you can get guys like Kenny Moore, Christian Gonzalez. All those kinds of guys are available after round 16, which is where I want to be drafting my DBs, but probably no earlier than round 10.
Here's what I would say to that those guys are usually available in those normal drafts. Do you think that those same caliber of guys are going to be there later in these drafts, where I think DBs are going to go a lot earlier because people are going to be thinking, I don't have as many bitch spots to throw at DB at the end of my draft?
It's a really good point. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah.
That's
I think
what's
I
part
probably
of fun.
won't chase, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's what I think's part of the fun of this is the psychology of these drafts, right? You're trying to understand the market and how it's going to react to a little bit different format than what we've seen. So got a couple picks here. Jake goes with Joshua Hines Allen, and then Jax doubles up with Fred Warner and Montez Sweat. So no surprise to see Fred go there at the end of the first, and then Montez go at the start of the second. Does that feel a little early for Montez Sweat for you, David?
No, I think that's fine.
My thing with that, I feel like those top 11 I feel really good about. Once it gets to 12, I think it's a big tier. Just take who you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we usually see Montez go second round, so I'm not saying it's a reach or anything like that. And Fred typically goes either like 112, 201, or 202. So not a shocker by any means, but it is, I think, a little earlier than probably what Montez has typically been going if we look at the ADP. So, Eric, I think you are back up, correct?
Yeah, I'm about to make somebody very upset.
Uh-oh, going Van Ginkel. I knew it. Well,
Yeah. But it's not Adam. I'll let him have Khalil Mack.
Ooh.
I think I'm going to go a linebacker here rather than
Ernest Jones? Ernest Jones?
Ernest Jones.
Well, it's funny because Freddie Sanford was saying Ernie Jones time. So there you go, Freddie. Ernest Jones here at the 203.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to look it up. Montez Sweat is going 18.5. So basically middle of the second round. I knew it was a little bit later than what we had seen here. So, all right. So why Ernest Jones, Eric?
I think he's going to be huge again this year. Didn't want to piss off Adam. And I like Ernest Jones a lot. I think, like you guys said earlier, the whole second round is kind of like who you like. It's all kind of one big tier to me. And I like Ernest Jones a lot. So I'll take him over the old head. Okay,
so Adam gets somehow Myles Garrett and Khalil Mack. So I hate him more than ever right now. And we'll be curious to see who Bobo goes with here. We've got David Lewis chiming in saying Zaire Franklin. That would not be a bad pick. Adam crushing the draft. That's what he does, Theo. That's what he does.
It's lucky.
Yes, he does. So we'll see which direction Bobo goes here. But I think I'm going to have my choice of probably maybe Zaire Franklin, TJ Edwards. Well, there you go. So Zaire goes off the board. We were just talking about Zaire Franklin on the last episode. Adam loves everyone. So anytime Adam is happy, I'm not, especially in these drafts. So, Adam, you can go to bed now. All right, gentlemen. David, make the case. Who should I go with here at the, 206?
I've taken Trey Hendrickson a lot here. Not a guy who gets you a lot of tackles, but in this scoring, we don't really care. We just want sacks. And really just like structurally in these drafts, I just don't like taking linebackers this early at all in any rounds. And I think through the 7 drafts I've done, I've taken one linebacker in the first 3 rounds. So I try and stay away from linebackers. I just think you can get better guys later. Not better guys later, but much closer to replaceable from what you're getting here versus what you're getting at defensive line later.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I like a lot of the later linebackers a lot more than I like a lot of the later DL. So even though we know, like Evan mentioned at the top of the show, linebacker does better in IDP Madness, I don't know that I necessarily want to go linebacker here because I don't see a big difference between a guy that I could snag here and a guy who's probably going to be available for me in the 3rd round coming back. Kyle Bellyfield, can I just draft Adam? Dude is a stud. That's enough. We have had it with all the Adam love. I'm very upset right now. Sleeper linebacker pick from David, Micah McFadden. Yeah, you might see some Micah McFadden later in the draft, David. Good shout out there. So, all right, gents. I'm so torn here because I also love guys in this format like Chris Jones that can be infuriating for regular rostered leagues because he can go for 2 points or he can go for 32 points. So I think he's on my mind right now. Linebacker-wise, you're looking at TJ Edwards. Kayvon is still on the board. Dual Desi is nice. Pat Queen. Adams talked up Pat Queen a lot. And you got to figure, coming back to me at the 307, Pat Queen, Terrell Bernard, Quincy Williams, all going to be gone. Singleton, probably going to be gone. Logan Wilson might be gone. So I've got to decide here, do I go with DL and wait on linebacker or snag a linebacker and go DL? Maybe like defensive tackle. What do you think about Burns here, Evan?
I'm not a big fan. Like DJ KT said, I'm going Hendrickson pretty easily here. Both Giants edge rushers, I'm not getting any shares of really. Both had, or Kayvon had like horrible metrics last year, and Burns has just always been kind of mediocre in the metrics. So I'm out.
For that reason, I'm out. All right, you guys have talked me into it. I was going to go DL, and I was really looking at probably Brian Burns, Chris Jones, and Hendrickson. I just like Hendrickson probably a little bit later in the second, but obviously he's not going to make it back around to me. And I like the idea of stacking a couple of elite edge rushers here. So Adam says don't talk about Singleton. You're not getting him, Adam. One of us is going to take him from you as payback here. So let's go with Trey Hendrickson at the, what was that, 206. So no surprise. Mike, guys, I'm just telling you right now, it's going to be all like purplish blue. What is this, fuchsia for Mike all the way down here. Kyle Bellyfuel is up. He took Nick Bosa at the 105. Mike has gone Roquan Smith, Bobby Wagner. So, DJ KT, who do you think is going to be available for you here with your next pick at 209?
The two guys I have queued up are Burns and Quinn Williams. Burns is a guy I haven't had a chance to draft yet. He's a guy I've passed on a lot. I've picked a lot at the opposite end of the board of this. So typically when I've been there, it's been a lot of Khalil Mack. It's been a lot of Trey Hendrickson. So I kind of like the idea of trying Burns because I feel like if he's at least good enough that I want to have it. If we were doing like a broad swath of drafts, and I know this is just a mock, he still feels like a guy who could burn me if I draft none of him.
Mm-hmm. All right, so big Q goes. So I guess it is Brian Burns time?
Yeah, it'll be Brian's Burns time. Before we do that, I do want to touch a little bit on sort of how this first round goes because we did have a couple linebackers that went really early here. And last year earlier this year when I did the best ball article, one of the things that was in it was like your best ball points scored. So that was, how many points a player scored, and that was looking at how many points they scored every week, and then minusing basically what the last flex player would be of the players who were drafted for the bigger format. So, Foye Oluokun was the LB1 last year. He had this great season, but he still finished his 7th in best ball points added. TJ Watt scores like 100 more points from him. So that's one of the problems that you kind of have with linebackers, that they score a little bit more steadily than defensive linemen do. Sort of supercharged by this format, which is a little bit more big play. So I think really what you're supposed to be looking for in these first couple rounds is someone who's got a chance at like being the overall defensive line one, because Olkun gave you that last year. He was number 1 linebacker, and he was still the 7th best player at the end of the day. So when I've done these drafts, and I've drafted Olkun because I think there's kind of a group of like Watt, Crosby, Parsons, Bosa, Roquan, Hutchinson, Anderson, Garrett, and Hunter, and Hines Allen. You can kind of close your eyes and imagine that they're all going to be the defensive line one this year. They get 20 sacks or something like that. After that point, you get into kind of a dicey group there where you've got Sweat and you've got Mack and you've got a couple guys like Burns and Thibodeau. I will stop stalling and just take Burns. But But in this format specifically, like we're trying to win these leagues. In Madness specifically, we're trying to win a whole bunch of leagues. Why is my computer not picking? There we go. So like you're looking for that upside. Like we don't really care about consistency. You're not trying to finish fifth. You're trying to finish first.
Yeah. Yeah. Evan, how much do you balance that swinging for upside versus floor with something like best ball? Because I don't think you can go all ceiling plays, but I also think if you shoot for the floor, you're going to finish like sixth, and the point is to finish first. So how do you balance that with something like Madness?
That's a really tough question. I mean, I think in our long 31 round drafts, where we have 16 starters, I think floor is quite valuable there. But in this, it's really more about the ceiling. But I mean, that's a question that you can ask about any fantasy football league, is how to balance floor versus ceiling, and it's might be the toughest question there is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, the nice part about best ball is that, yes, you do get your lineup set for you each week. So you don't have to worry about taking a 0 from somebody. You're going to have that optimal lineup. But in something like this, where it's cumulative points over the course of the season, spike weeks and those, outlier type performances are what win you, to win Madness. Of course, as Country Boy Swagger will attest, it's the best strategy is always just pick the best players. So that's always going to supersede any strategy that we can give you. But short of that, I think in something like Madness, I'm going to probably I'm going to be a little riskier, maybe take some more upside swings, just because you're not just trying to beat 11 other people, you're trying to beat 143 other people. So I think it's going to be a lot of luck as well. I mean, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
But I think for me at least, my risk appetite increases with something like Madness because you do have to beat so many other people. All right, so Johnny's on the clock here. We got a comment. And Eric, this one's for you on the Ernest Jones pick. Are you worried that without Donald up front that Ernest Jones may be dealing with more blockers than last year?
Not so much. I think he's going to eat up some tackles. I think that'll help. He may not get as many big plays, which maybe that's a reason not to take him where I took him. I do like his consistency. I like to kind of mix it in. What you were just talking about. I like to have a couple guys that are going to be solid every week, producers mixed in with high ceiling guys. All high ceiling guys, some weeks it just doesn't work out for you. I know this isn't a weekly thing, it's a season long deal, but you want to have people that are going to get you points every week, so you're accumulating those points throughout the season. So I think if you listen to Jeff and I's podcast, I talked a little bit about Aaron Donald and having an effect on Kobe Turner, and I think that him and Fisk are going to have a hard time in the middle of that line without Donald there. But I think Ernest is still going to eat, and maybe more running backs get through to him, a few more tackles to offset what he might lose otherwise.
Oh, sorry, I was muted there. To be clear, you cannot replace an Aaron Donald,
No.
but the Rams at least threw bodies at the problem. You have Kobe Turner, you bring in Braden Fisk, you bring in Jared Verse. You really are trying to beef up that line and just throw bodies at the fact that you no longer have what can truly be considered a generational talent. I think him and J.J. Watt, it's fair to give that moniker to. As generational talents in Aaron Donald. So another comment from Freddie. On the rise, Matabikwe getting no love this year, even after getting 13 sacks and 38 solo tackles last year. I think you're going to see Justin M here very soon. His ADP in these best ball drafts is 33.6. So basically end of the third round, like ninth pick of the third round, somewhere in that range. So let's update you guys on some picks here. TJ Edwards goes at the 210, and then Jeff goes with Nick Bolton, one of those lightning rod players. David, what do you think about Nick Bolton going at 211 to Jeff? A little early?
I mean, if you like taking linebackers there, it's fine. I think. I think Kansas City probably gets a little bit more back to him playing full time. Although Kansas City itself is kind of confusing, right? Because they signed Drew Tranquil to what, $7 million a year, and that's more than enough. Looking at the past few years, of pretty much everybody who makes that much money plays 100% snaps, 100% of snaps in week one, and I don't think we necessarily project that for Tranquil, but you would kind of think that he's going to play a major role in that defense regardless. So I don't know what that leaves for Bolton. So I guess based on that alone, it makes it kind of a risky pick early, right? Because if you're picking a linebacker in these first couple rounds, you want to be pretty dead certain that he's playing 100% of snaps for all reasons other than getting injured would be the only reason why they wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I would think Pat Queen, Terrell Bernard, Quincy Williams, Singleton, Logan Wilson, Al-Shair. I would probably go all those guys over Bolton. So, Jeff, if you're watching, chime in. I think you are because you commented earlier. But chime in and let us know why Bolton there. I'd love to hear your rationale. But speaking of rationale, Evan, you are up with a double up here at the turn, 212, 301. What you thinking here? Because this is important because you ain't going to be back up for a while. So, important picks here for you.
Yeah. I'm going to take two upside swings here.
Okay.
I'm going to take Hassan Reddick, and I'm going to take Chris Jones.
But, Evan, Hassan Reddick's in Japan cosplaying right now. Are you worried at all about his focus this offseason?
I am a little bit worried that his metrics fell off a lot last year. But the year before, they were top of the league elite. So I'm hoping that maybe the trade to the Jets will help give him some more motivation and, keep him going. It's also a really good D-line there. It's really about, will he be able to stay on the field as much as he was? I think he probably does. So, it could be a horrible pick, but it could be an amazing pick too. We'll see. Same thing with Chris Jones. He could totally fall off a cliff this year, or he could keep going and be one of the best interior pass rushers in the league like he has been.
Could be a terrible pick, could be a great pick. Eric, I feel like we could say that about most of our picks in these drafts, but what did you think about the Reddick and Chris Jones double up there from Evan? You're muted.
I like Chris Jones. Reddick, I'm not. I mean, he's going to come back from Japan. Not too worried about that.
He's going to come back from Japan, we think.
Yeah, I'm more worried about the contract. He seems.
Yeah.
I mean, the Eagles were willing to let him go for a reason. Well, not let him go, but they wanted granted his trade request for a reason. It's because he wanted a big contract. And I don't know why the Jets seem to be surprised by that for some reason. And it just doesn't seem like there's been any talks yet on that at all. So I'm kind of a little bit worried that he might hold out to begin the year. I guess we'll see what happens there. But I think it's a risk reward pick. Like Evan said, he's going for upside. If he plays, it could be really good.
Yeah. And we got a little bit of an explanation here from Jeff, who said bounce back season incoming, played great to wrap up the regular season with 8, 5, 6, and 13 tackles. I don't, like we've talked about on the show a lot, I don't doubt that in Nick Bolton's range of outcomes is a top 5 linebacker season in 2024. Totally could happen.
Sure.
I could see it. But I think the downside risk with him is so much bigger because I just don't know how they're going to deploy these linebackers. I don't know. Spagnuolo in his bag of evil all the time with these linebackers. Bringing back Drew Tranquil. If they had not brought back Drew Tranquil, my confidence level in Nick Bolton, much, much higher. But just with 3 very capable linebackers there, I'm a little bit scared.
I noticed Jeff mentioned the regular season and not the playoffs
yes.
there. So that's kind of the range of Nick Bolton. Playoff Nick Bolton or end of regular season Nick Bolton.
Yeah, and I want to give Bolton some grace because I know like Zaire Franklin, like a lot of guys like Quay Walker, he was banged up last year. Probably playing hurt more than we realize. So I want to give him some grace because I think he can be a lot better than what he showed, especially in the playoffs when his grades were like in the 40s, like really, really bad. So Jeff goes Alex Highsmith there at 302. Johnny goes Kayvon Thibodeau at 303. We may not like Kayvon in like the early second. 303, I don't mind that, especially dual Desi. DJ Keltown, 304, you're on the clock. What you thinking?
As you guys have been talking, I was considering Matt Judon because he was hurt last year, but we had no problem making him a second-round pick last year. So why is he in the third round now? I think, though, that I'm instead going to go with DeForest Buckner, and I don't have a very particularly long spiel for him either, other than just we've seen a lot of linebackers go in this draft fairly early, which I think we talked about a little bit already is going to be expected in a Madness draft that's a little bit shorter. There's a little bit fewer things that you can do with roster construction. You can't really draft 11 defensive linemen in this format, whereas in the longer best balls you can. But still, I think there's going to be better value at linebacker as you get a little bit later into these drafts, or at least as I found them once you get into about round 6. The linebacker choices, because you still have guys who you have pretty good bets to be full-time players, and you start to get into like much sketchier defensive line options as a lot of players have been cleared out in the early rounds.
All right, so Singleton goes at the 305. So Adam just threw his phone through a window. Good. I hope it's broken. 306, Terrell Bernard goes to Mike. I'm telling y'all just wait. It's going to be 6 straight linebackers to start this draft for Mike. I'm just calling it now. And I'm on the clock here. And I'm definitely thinking linebacker here because the lineman's still on the board. I mean, we got Justin M. We talked about him. Could be a nice pick there. Old Greg Rousseau, still on the board. I don't know why Arnold Ebiketie is so high on this ADP. Sleeper, call us. We'll hook you up with some much better ADP. Jeffrey Simmons, still on the board. That's pretty nice. That's pretty juicy. Evan, make the case here. Do I go a third DL or do I start looking linebacker at this point?
I'm definitely looking linebacker. I like Queen and I like Quincy.
Yep.
But I'm also intrigued by Judon. He does have that dual desi, so that fulfills your requirement. And I would personally probably go Judon. I think he's got a ton more upside than the linebackers there, but can't fault you for going linebacker either.
Yeah, I think I want to grab because I see Pat Queen and Quincy Williams in a tier, probably maybe in a tier with Azeez Al-Shaair or maybe in a tier above Azeez Al-Shaair. There's a chance maybe Azeez makes it back. Probably not. But I think I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to go with Adam's guy. I'm going to snipe him. Put one more dart in his back here. We're going to go Pat Queen at the 307. I don't have many Pat Queen shares, but Pat Queen, mid-third, I like that a lot, especially as my LB1. Bobo is up now, and then Adam, and then Eric. So, Eric, take us inside your brain. Who are you hoping is on the board when you get up at 310?
Well, he's been talked about a lot here recently, and Matt Judon is who I'm hoping is still there. If not him, I'm still looking. There's a couple of dual desi guys I like that should be in that range. Jonathan Grenard and Harold Landry are a couple I'm looking at.
Landry's such a great pick in these drafts. Dual desi, probably going to play like 90+% of snaps. I mean, just a fabulous value in these drafts.
Yep. So I'm happy that one of the three is going to make it to me, I guess. I was happy you went linebacker there.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some nice DL on the board. I think that was probably the right choice was Judon, but I don't know. I just kind of wanted to get a Pat Queen share. It felt like it was time. Here's a nice comment from David Lewis. I'd also take Devin Lloyd over Nick Bolton. Evan, what do you think about that? Devin Lloyd over Nick Bolton.
That's hot. That's spicy. I don't hate it, really. I mean, I think I'm really just not a Bolton guy, but I would still take him over Lloyd. I think that from a tackle rate perspective, Nick Bolton is near elite, while Devin Lloyd is kind of more middle of the pack. And, the difference between being an LB1 and an LB2, not a huge difference, but it does matter a little bit.
Yeah, DJ KT, Devin Lloyd or Nick Bolton?
I mean, I guess Nick Bolton, but only because you don't really have to because Devin Lloyd's ADP is in the 6th round.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to check Adam's best ball rankings. So he has Devin Lloyd at LB 36, and he has Bolton at LB 22. So he has it Nick Bolton over Devin Lloyd. I agree. I would go Nick Bolton because there's no chance that Devin Lloyd is the LB1 for his own team unless Foye gets hurt, whereas Nick Bolton should be the LB1 for the Chiefs. So that's the tiebreaker for me.
Right.
Bobo,
And the thing is that,
go ahead, Evan.
one real quick. Foye gets really good usage. He gets a lot of pass rush snaps and stuff like that Devin Lloyd doesn't get as much. So if he was at LB1, it would be in consideration.
Yeah. So there you go, Eric. I really do think Adam was listening and just wanted to get some payback. But he goes Matthew Judon. Bobo actually breaks the seal and goes Antoine Winfield. The provocative picks continue here. At the 308, he goes Antoine Winfield Jr. Adam goes with Judon, so he has a Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack, Matthew Judon stack. He can't keep getting away with it. .gif right now. So Judon's gone. Eric, you got to adapt and adjust. What you thinking here?
Well, I think it's Grenard or Harold Landry. I've taken Grenard in a couple, and I think I'm going to go with Landry this time, just because I've got a couple shares of Mr. Grenard already.
All right, so we're going Harold Landry. I like that a lot. That puts oh, here you go. Does this make you feel any better? Real sorry, Eric.
Somebody call 911.
There you go. Adam's absolutely sick about it. So there you go, Jeff. Adam listened to the podcast we did, Eric, and knew he was your guy. And Theo said Bobby is trolling at this point. You guys are locked in. Spot on with the comments. You guys absolutely know what this IDP show team is all about. So we're going to have Jake here at the 311, and then we'll have Jack's double up 312 401. David, what has been any surprises through the first 34 picks at this point?
Maybe with how many linebackers have gone this early, although I did go back and look at the ADP last year and kind of split out like Madness drafts versus normal drafts, just assuming that the normal drafts were all the longer ones. I know we had kind of a mix and match of different ones in there at the end. And you did see like a lot of linebackers go earlier in the Madness drafts than you did in the regular ones. You especially see that with DBs, which I was going to comment with Bobby taking Winfield. One of the things that you can do in the 31 round format that you can't really do here is solve DB with volume. Is in the 31 round draft, you can just draft defensive linemen and linebackers all the way down, and then you can get to round 19 and draft 13 straight defensive backs to end the draft. And you're filling 4 spots and maybe a couple flexes with defensive backs. You're just going to get weeks out of those guys. Like you'll get the odd week where a guy gets 2 tackles in the pass defense, and that's good enough to get into your lineup. Here, the roster construction with Madness with, more or less the same number of starting spots, just the 2 less flexes, but so many less bench spots. You have to be a little bit more careful about how you're allocating your rosters and how you're going to solve, how you're solving each position, where solving positions with volume you can't really do here. So you have to be a little more careful of picking the right players, not picking the right players, but how many spots you allocate to each? Because if you try and draft 13 defensive backs in Madness, you're just not going to have enough of something else.
And I think that's a case also for mixing in a little bit of stability in your draft, because if you don't have all the positions to throw at each of the high upside players, a little bit of stability, I think, helps have good point weeks every week to some degree. You want to make sure you have booms every week, but you're not going to with the number of roster spots. And
Bobby going Winfield in the third, that probably takes him from what would have been an 8 DB build. Now it's a 7 DB build, or probably can't get to a 6, but you could get down to a 7, which is nice.
That's true. I mean, there are advantages to stacking, those elite DBs early, in that I agree. I think it takes away a spot on your roster that you have to allocate the DBs if you know for a fact Winfield's going to be in your lineup more weeks than he's not. Whereas you have to allocate more roster spots if you're fading DB, because a lot of those guys won't make your starting lineups. They're more hit or miss in terms of scoring. So there is something to be said for that. You do have to, like David said, think about that roster construction especially when it comes to DB, because you just can't slam 13 DBs at the end of the draft now.
Yeah, the
7
tough part.
DBs is
Go
probably
ahead.
light though, because the problem that you have with DB is, and we've talked about this a lot before, where like the repeat rate on DBs is just terrible. Like it's just not the same players who finish at the top of the DB ranks every single year. But it's not even the repeat rate of it. It's the players that we rank to be the high finishers also don't finish there. It's just we're just so much more worse at picking at ranking that position. So you just kind of get like a mixed bag of it. So if you go in and pick a low number of DBs like 7, I think you run a lot of risk of just like missing on guys. Like if you're gonna pick one early, like obviously you're making a bet that player is gonna be really good. And Country Boy Swagger did that last year, right? Like he picked Winfield, he was really good. He picked Kyle Hamilton, he was really good. He picked 2 other DBs that weren't. He had a couple other wonderful picks in his draft, but that's just the thing to be careful of DB is just that no matter how confident we get in these players in August of what we think the deployment's going to be, and how we think they're going to score, and how many interceptions they're going to catch, it just never works out that way, right? Like we think of like, last year everybody was falling over themselves to draft Jalen Petrie, even though the deployment was bad. We thought it was an outlier on tackles, and sure enough, he burns everybody who drafts him.
Yeah, so I wanted to see who Jake was going to go with here. I was worried he might be about to auto, but he jumps in right at the last second and goes with JOK, breaking my heart because the JOK, Azeez Al-Shaair, Christian Harris kind of trifecta is one of my absolute favorite moves to do in this draft, and now I will not be able to get it. JOK probably going to be my most drafted player by the time best ball season is over. No linebacker. Him and Ernest Jones probably finished the season 1 and 2 in terms of points per game, weeks 10 through 18. So love JOK. Little early. I don't know that Jake had to go JOK here. I think, well, it's probably one of those things where he knew JOK wasn't making it back around. So if he's a guy you want, you do kind of have to reach a little bit here on the turn. So got a question while we're waiting here for Jax to double up with his picks. Nick K says, I'm new to IDP drafting. Welcome in, Nick. We're so happy to have you in the land of DGens. New to IDP drafting. Who is your favorite rookie sleeper? I'm currently in a start 18 offense and defense league, and it's rookie draft time. Evan, we'll kick off with you on this question. Who is your favorite rookie IDP sleeper?
Great question. I love talking about rookie sleepers. Let's do one at D end. Austin Booker, 5th round pick to the Bears. I think he has a chance to actually play quite a bit as a rookie, and his metrics were very good in college. At the linebacker position, I have a preference for Tyrese Knight with the Seahawks.
Yes.
I think he got drafted in the 4th, and he has a chance to play from day 1 as well, which is rare at the linebacker position. Any other positions? Maybe a defensive tackle, very deep sleeper, is Michael Hall Jr.
Okay.
For the Browns. Really like that guy. Yeah. You guys have any other thoughts?
I should mention here, Jake asked to have JOK removed. So the JOK pick by me, the hope lives on. May be able to get JOK a little later. So we'll see who Jake goes with here at 311. Yeah, Tyrese Knight's the one I wanted to bring up because I do like the 2 linebackers there in Seattle that they brought in. Jason King actually had a great article yesterday talking about Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker. And we love those guys as values, as kind of sleepers this season, but those are not by any means like locked and loaded stud linebackers. So I think there is a chance. Same thing with Cedric Gray. I love Kenneth Murray. I'll probably be looking at Kenneth Murray in this draft. But Cedric Gray just has to beat out really Jack Gibbons. Monty Rice is gone, so I like him a lot as well. DJ KT, anybody we missed on the rookie side that you like as a sleeper?
No, not really. You know what? I had to pull up one of my rookie drafts while you were talking about this because I've put most of the rookie talk out of my brain. This was one of the worst classes that we've had in years, just in terms of the draft capital that these guys got. Like no high-end defensive linemen, no round 1 linebackers, no round 1 safeties. I don't mind some of these 3rd-round linebackers. I think there's 5 of them. I don't remember all of their names. The thing you got to be careful with those guys is they almost never, ever start as rookies.
Yep.
We get very excited about some of these guys starting as rookies. People were falling all over themselves when Kobe Dean got drafted because we just thought that the NFL was just totally wrong and he couldn't have been a third-round pick. But what you're really looking for those guys in a rookie draft is if you can find one that's falling in drafts and you can get them on your team, as long as you're patient and you have the roster space to wait for a year, because what you're really looking for as a rookie is just signs of life that they're active on game days, even if it's special teams, if they're like a clear backup to starters, like Terrell Bernard. Terrell Bernard was a clear backup to one of Milano or Tremaine Edmonds. I don't remember which one. Cody Barton years ago for Seattle was a clear backup for Bobby Wagner and I think KJ Wright.
KJ Wright, the infamous KJ Wright.
I guess he would have been a backup when Brooks was there too, and then finally Wagner left. So as long as you just don't get ahead of yourselves and into the hype that these guys are going to come in and smash, the problem that we get in with rookies as people who do content or whatever is you're watching all these linebackers, you rank, you've got your favorite 4 linebackers. Inevitably, 2 or 3 of those guys don't get draft capital, but you've watched all the college tape. You're really excited. They can do all these things. Just a very difficult position to learn at the NFL. We've seen a lot of first rounders recently, like Jack Campbell wasn't a full-time starter last year. Both Arizona guys, Simmons and Zane Collins, didn't start as rookies. Jamie Davis never really got a shot, or he got a shot eventually, but just not as a rookie.
Just didn't capitalize when he got a shot.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like when in doubt, fade IDP in your rookie drafts. I want to say, Nick, real quick, check out the IDPshow.com. Got some great rookie rankings over there.
Yes, we do. Rookie rankings available. Trevin Wallace from David Lewis. Great call out as well.
Love it.
Depends on what you classify as a sleeper.
Right.
Adam took Trevin Wallace in the 5th round of our rookie draft, I believe, in our main league. So if you're talking like 6th, 7th, kind of later, then I don't know that Trevin Wallace exactly qualifies. We can come back to this in just a second, though. Eric, you're on the clock. So we took JOK off the board for Jake at 311. He goes Quincy Williams. Jax goes Jonathan Grenard. Jeffrey Simmons at 401 is freaking beautiful. Good job, Jax. And then Jake double taps with the Jets and goes with Jermaine Johnson at 402. Eric, you're up at 403. Take us inside that beautiful brain. Unmute yourself and let us know what you're thinking.
All right. Sorry about that. This part's just kind of take what you like. I don't really want to go with another linebacker only, which would be Al-Shaair. Frankie Louvu is a little interesting because he does have spike weeks, and I think Washington's probably going to use him on the edge. They just don't have the edge rushers there. Dorrance Armstrong, Fowler. They brought both those guys from Dallas over. So Louvu is a little bit interesting as a linebacker only, who has spike weeks. And then Matabuike's interesting here. I don't really know what I want to do with that. But
I'm hoping you don't go Matabikwe because I would love for him to be there when I get back up.
I kind of, yeah.
I kind of want to do it. I kind of want to go Matabikwe is what he's thinking.
It's kind of what I'm leaning towards is Matabuike, so that's what I'm going to do.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Nick said I'll check out those rankings later. Nice. Thanks. Thank you, Nick, for popping in and checking out the stream. We also had a comment earlier I wanted to bring up from Freddie. No free agent pickups in best ball, right? That is correct, Freddie. This is underdog-style best ball where it is draft and done. No trades, no pickups, no nothing in season. So, okay. So Matabikwe goes, and then Adam goes with Azeez Al-Shaair, breaking my heart. Don't be surprised if Bobby goes with Kyle Hamilton here just to continue to be a good old troll. So I am going to be looking at... No, he goes with Rashawn Gary. Evan, what do you think about Rashawn Gary there going at 405?
I kind of like Gary. 15% pressure stick up there. He had that huge, like, 50-point week. I think he might have had multiple huge weeks like that. So love that kind of guy in best ball. And, he's still young. Maybe he's getting better, too. I think he's 2 years off the ACL now. So, yeah, could be a big year.
Yeah, can I jump in on Gary really quick?
Yes, of course, DJ KT.
there are guys every year that don't play an awful lot for one reason or another, and we project that they do great things when they play a lot. And a lot of those times, those are folly, but not with Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary was great 2 years ago, and then he tore his ACL. And then last year, they came back, and Green Bay very noticeably eased him in. There's a lot of games at the beginning of the season where he plays 20% of snaps. He gets up to 70% at the end of the season. There's really no reason why they would cut him back next year. He's another year removed from that injury. Elite pass rush metrics both years. I mean, really, Gary should be a second-round pick. It's just that he always is there at the end of the third, so we don't have to chase him off the board. But no, Gary's a great pick.
Okay, so Rashawn Gary. You know who else is upset about this? Kyle Bellyfuel. Bob, no, why did you do that? Because Bob is trolling y'all. Boobam also feeling Kyle's pain, seeing their beloved Green Bay Packer go off the board. I think both of those guys had heart eyes for Rashawn Gary there in this round, and he goes to Bob. This one is easy for me. This is a guy that I find myself taking more and more, and I love that he is available here in this range. It is Adam's 37th ranked player. So to get him at, 37, 8, 9, 41, the 42nd pick overall, give me Frankie Louvu all day long. As far as like spike play, big, weak kind of upside, I don't think that there are many guys I would take over Frankie Louvu who are just strictly like off-ball linebackers. I'd put JOK in that mix as well. Guys like Foye and Roquan can do it because they have the sack upside right as well. That's what makes them elite linebackers, especially for IDP. But give me Frankie Louvu with my 4th round pick, and let's ride. And Mike breaks the streak and goes with Bryce Huff. What do we think about that one, Evan?
I love it. I actually want to talk about Louvu a little bit.
Okay, let's do it.
I think that there's a chance that Dan Quinn actually runs out some 3 linebacker sets. And puts Louvu kind of as a hybrid linebacker / pass rusher due to what Eric was talking about, how they have just no talent at edge right now, that would be phenomenal usage for Louvu. So that would be awesome. But Huff, love Huff as well.
Okay, so Huff goes, and then we see Joey Bosa go. How does Joey Bosa just always slide into the 4th rounds, Eric? I'm contractually not allowed to take Joey Bosa because I trash talked this guy too much on the pod as being made of glass, but a phenomenal 4th round pick there by Kyle.
Yeah, when he's playing, he's great. And I think that's why he slides, is he just doesn't get on the field enough. The last several years, he's had injuries every year that just prevent him from helping your team the whole year. But those weeks that he's there, he's definitely going to help you score some points. He's going to end up being in your starting lineup in a best ball.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that I just never even, I just block him out of my mind. I don't want to think about Joey Bosa. I'm done with him.
I'm right there with you, Evan. I'm just a hater. MJ, yeah, odd Josh Allen isn't drafted, as David said. Drafted at 111, changed his name today. Congrats to Joshua Hines Allen on the new name. DJ KT, you are up here in the 4th round, 409. You have gone Micah Parsons, Brian Burns, DeForest Buckner. Are you going to break the seal and go LB?
Yeah, I think so. I was kind of hoping Rashawn Gary was going to fall this far, although that's a little bit wishful thinking, I think. The other guy I was considering, Trayvon Walker. He had 10 sacks last year, showed a lot of signs of life as a rookie, or I guess as a second-year player. But as I have like 12 tabs open as I'm doing this, one of the ones that I have open is Macri's expected sacks article. And if I scroll down there, well, you know what? I'm not going to bother. Oh, this is a premium article. So if you don't have a PFF subscription, I'm sorry. But anyway, 4.5 expected sacks for Trayvon Walker, which is probably not something that I feel like doing this high in a best ball. I don't really feel like chasing last year's points, last year's sacks. Fact check, they will score you 0 points in this year's best ball. So I will start with linebackers, and I don't really have a particularly strong case for Logan Wilson over any of the other guys that are kind of in the ADP around this range, but just a guy that I'm fairly confident is going to play all the snaps when he's healthy.
Okay, a little run of linebackers after you go there. You started a wave. DJKT, Logan Wilson, CJ Mosley, one of Johnny the Greek's absolute favorites, till the wheels fall off with that guy. Jeff goes Levante David, one of my favorite picks in this range as well. Crazy that Levante David is going in the 4th round. What is this, essentially 47th overall? So you saw Joey Bosa and then 3 straight linebackers go off the board, Evan, before your pick at 412. You're doubling up, 412, 501. What you thinking here?
This is a tough spot. I know one of these picks is going to be JOK. He's one of those rare guys that can tackle at a good level while also rushing the passer, which is awesome.
Terrible pick. Don't do it. Too late.
For my second pick,
Hurtful.
Oh, this is really tough. I don't like Trevon Walker is a value here, but I just can't do it. The metrics are not good at all. You know what? I'll do it. I'll take Quay Walker, who I don't love, but I think he'll be on the field a lot, and he does have some upside with big plays and stuff like that. So don't love it, but I'll send it.
Yeah, Eric, I'm curious. There are just certain guys that, I don't know, I just can't bring myself to push the button on. I think Trayvon is one. There's certain guys I just don't feel great about, and anytime, even if they're sitting there as a value, I just have a hard time wanting to push the button. You've been in a lot of these drafts. Are there guys like that for you that are just kind of on the no-fly list? Unmute yourself.
I was on another screen. Sorry. Yeah, Trayvon's definitely one. Thibodeau, I've talked about. I won't take him. I've called him Leonard Floyd in a younger, fresher face. So that he's one that I just don't take is Thibodeau, and can't think of anything else off the top of my head for other players. But Thibodeau and Leonard Floyd, they look a lot. They statistically last year looked really, really identical, almost identical, very similar. Not a lot of pressures, but they got a lot of sacks, and just very super efficient. You wouldn't expect that to continue, but Leonard Floyd kind of does that. We talked earlier about I can't remember who DJ Kelton was talking about earlier now that is hyper efficient, but anyway, yeah, there's players that are. Oh, it was TJ Watt that DJ was talking about.
It's good you remember because I didn't.
Yeah. So
he was searching his brain and there was nothing there either.
I got there, but there are certain players that just are efficient. But I just don't believe Thibodeau is going to keep it up. Maybe I'll be wrong.
Yeah, maybe. I think the Brian Burns factor is something maybe we're underestimating. This is the best defensive, fellow edge rusher that he's ever had. But maybe it's Azeez Ojulari time. Speaking of, we have a comment here from Theo. Go grab some Nick Herbig in your dynasty leagues. He's finally DL eligible and only rostered in 15% of leagues. I know Bobo is a big fan of Nick Herbig and like that call a lot. I don't know how much he's going to see the field because he has 2 elite guys and Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt ahead of him, but the injury upside there, the contingent upside, if either of those guys go down, which we know all about that with TJ Watt, is big. So I think if nothing else, he is a great handcuff stash just in case TJ Watt gets broken pinky toenail 3 weeks into the season. So Quay Walker goes 501. Big Bob Spillane goes 502 to Jeff. So Jeff has gone with 3 out of 4 picks, linebackers here. Nick Bolton, Alex Highsmith, Levante David, Big Bob Spillane. And then Johnny goes with Kyle Hamilton. So we have our first DB go in the 3rd round to Bobby. Our second DB go in the 5th round to Johnny. DJ Keltown, you are up here. The 4th pick of the 5th round. You took your first linebacker last round with Logan Wilson. Going back to that well, thinking DL. What's going through your mind here?
You mean going back to the well for LB?
Yes.
No, I want to go back and grab a couple more defensive linemen.
Okay.
Just again, just structurally, I think it's better in these drafts to be defensive line heavy, there's a lot of players that are still good in this range, and later on you start to get sort of like lesser quality defensive linemen, but you still have linebackers who at least I think are pretty good shots at being full-time players next year. So a guy I kind of like here is George Karlaftis. We talked a little bit about Kayvon Thibodeau and what's been sort of confusing with his early career, because he was an excellent prospect coming out of Oregon. Seemed promising after his first year. And I mean, he had a lot of sacks last year, but we've kind of touched on a little bit that some of the PFF stuff for him being like the win rate, the pressure rate, that kind of stuff, really underwhelming last year. Karlaftis, also kind of a sneakily good prospect in his draft year, kind of met like all of the minimums that I look for athletically in some of that testing, productive as a pass rusher in college, and took a step forward last year. So I like him here as a fourth defensive lineman.
All right, so after you go George Karlaftis, we see Kaiser White, who Freddie was calling for earlier. Kaiser, yes, there you go, Kaiser White. Fantastic pick here. Typically goes, I feel like a little later, but goes 5th round here. Jalen Phillips goes to Mike at the, 506. Evan, what do you think about that? Jalen Phillips, I feel like, is maybe the biggest wild card in best ball this season.
Yeah, I was actually about to chime in earlier when we were talking about the no-fly list. Jalen Phillips is kind of on there for me. I just really don't like taking him in the 5th round when I don't think that he's going to start week 1, and I don't really have a ton of confidence that he's going to be the same guy right away. So plus they also lost Christian Wilkins on that D line. Bradley Chubb is also he also tore his ACL, so that line got a lot worse. So even if he is healthy, he doesn't have any help there. I'm really just not a Jalen Phillips guy this year.
Yeah, Theo said, I'm a massive Phillips fan and don't play redraft, but it does seem early. Yeah, I just don't want to take the risk this early in something like IDP Madness. If he was sitting there maybe 2 to 3 rounds later, if everyone was just playing chicken, saying, hey, who's going to be the guy to take Jalen Phillips in the 9th or 10th round, I might take a shot at that point, but I just don't know that he starts the season, and I just don't want to have that sort of risk on my hands to start the season. So I'm up here at the, 507. I have gone Aiden Hutchinson, Trey Hendrickson, Pat Queen, and Frankie Louvu. And I think I'm going to keep the linebacker train rolling, boys, because I just love the linebacker values, and I see a lot of linebackers going off the board here. So I think I need to probably, of course, that you could say, well, that's a good time to jump back over to DL while everyone's picking linebackers. But there's a guy sitting here that I just feel really good about. Sort of reminds me, we talk about no-fly list players. There's a list of players for me that I'm interested in very much so for 2024 and have zero interest in beyond that. And this guy is on that list for me, along with like a Kenneth Murray. But it is Josie Jewell, Carolina Panthers, LB1, reunited with Ejiro Evero. I think Jewell is in line for 150-plus tackles if this guy can stay healthy. Again, we mentioned Trevin Wallace, great pick in your rookie drafts because I think he has, potential to step right in there if Josie Jewell were to go down, and he struggled with injuries, so not the most durable player in the world. But right after him goes another one of our favorite white linebackers, Alex Anzalone. Eric, Anzalone kept your beloved Jack Campbell off the field in his rookie season. But there is no denying that Alex Anzalone has been a revelation for IDP here in recent seasons.
He just racks up stats. He gets the tackles. He just keeps doing it. And I think he's the kind of guy that they like there. He's a lunch pail type of guy and just a hard worker and gets it done. I do like the Jewell pick, of course, another Iowa linebacker. But last time he was with Ejiro, he was really good in that defense. So I think he's going to fit in well there, like you said. And I'm trying to stall, so I don't have to tell you what I'm looking at.
I know, right? Don't say it. I'm not going to make you cue yourself up again. Anzalone is the NFC Singleton. I like that comparison there, Boo Bam. Theo said, love me some Josie Jewell. Jeff said, great pick, Josh. Was considering him or Big Bob earlier this round, which is funny because I probably would have been looking Big Bob Spillane there if he had gone with Josie Jewell. So looks like Bobby goes Anzalone, Adam goes Christian Wilkins. Eric, you don't have to tip your pick now with Adam probably watching the stream. So what are you thinking? Was that your guy?
No. I'm looking at a guy that his replacement, he was injured last year. He's a dual desi guy. His replacement last year said this summer that he's kind of the lifeblood of the team now. And that's Uchenna Nwosu.
Oh,
and,
great pick.
I think having the dual desi there, and he's really good year 2 years ago. Unfortunately got hurt last year, and let Boye Mafe show what he could do. But I think having those two guys on the edge is going to be good for Seattle and going to Nwosu.
Uchenna Nwosu. Evan, you're a Seahawks fan. What's your temperature on Uchenna this season?
I love Uchenna. I also love Mafe. I am a little hesitate. I'm hesitating a little bit on all those guys on that line, just because there's like 4 to 5 guys that are all going to be in the mix, and I wouldn't say any of them are elite. Leonard Williams is there, Mafe and Uchenna, and we're hoping Derek Hall. And they're paying Draymond Jones a ton of money still. All those guys are going to be, and Darrell Taylor, all those guys are going to be in the mix. And I don't feel comfortable saying who's going to be the guy, although I would, Uchenna and Mafe have proved it.
Yeah, I think they're the most proven, but it reminds me a little bit of Philadelphia, where it's just an embarrassment of riches along this defensive line. I like your boys as a dark horse Super Bowl pick, Evan. I think Gino's going to bounce back. I think this team is loaded on both sides of the ball. I like the coaching upgrade with McDonald coming over there. So we should mention after Uchenna goes Dexter Lawrence, and then Jax doubles up with Jordan Brooks and Carl Granderson, and then Jake goes with Josh Sweat. So he is on a little bit of a DL run here, going with Jermaine Johnson, Dexter Lawrence, and Josh Sweat. Eric, you are back up. You don't have to worry about Adam taking your guy. What are you thinking now? You go with Uchenna last round, going DL, dual desi again?
I think I'm going back to linebacker.
All right.
It's going to be a little payback on Adam, I think, here. And I'm going to take his man, Blake Cashman, in the middle of Minnesota. It's a little bit risky. I think Ivan Pace played well, but I still think Cashman's got the majority of the snaps there. He's an experienced linebacker and had a great year last year, of course. So I'm going to go Cashman.
Cashman. Blake is Cashman. Real quick, let's get the room's temperature here. Blake Cashman or Ivan Pace Jr., who's the Vikings linebacker that you want, Evan?
It's really tough. I would lean Cashman. He had like an elite tackle rate last year, or tackle opportunity rate. While Pace is more of like the big play guy. So you really can't go wrong, in my opinion. But I do lean Cashman. Okay,
Cashman. DJ Keltown, Ivan Pace Jr., or Blake Cashman?
For me, it's Cashman. So I saw Nick, by the way, had a question earlier about how much we care about PFF grades for IDP production.
Yes, I'll set that up here.
And maybe we could flesh that out later. But specifically for linebacker, I don't think we look at the PFF stuff a whole lot outside of maybe some job security stuff. So Cashman sort of overall graded very well. But the thing I like about Cashman, I talked about this before with Tranquil, is they gave Cashman, I think, 3 years, $21 million. So again, another guy that they gave enough money that at least the last couple of years historically, that's a player that's a full-time starter. And we've gotten ourselves all sort of whipped up and frenzy about Pace. Pace last year played, I think, about 60% of the snaps to start the season with Hicks as a full-time starter. They scaled his snaps down as they decided they were going to run more 3 safety stuff. Then Hicks gets hurt. Pace comes in as the play caller and 100% player. He's amazing for 5 or 6 weeks. Some people I've seen spin this narrative that when Hicks came back, they both played. That's not true. When Hicks came back, Ivan Pace played about 30% of snaps, and then he played 100% in the Green Bay game, and then 30% in the last game of the season. So for where Pace goes in drafts, which I think is usually around round 8 or so, a little bit hot for me in terms of a player who I just don't have the confidence that he's going to be a full-time player next year. Like, obviously, bullish for him for Dynasty as an undrafted player that he got any playing time at all. But when we're talking about this year, I'm very skeptical about Pace.
Okay, very well said. I don't think I could have said it better myself. I probably lean Cashman, although I'll probably have a little bit of both, depending on Pace is a little spicy for where he's going in these drafts. I agree with David there that it's a little rich for my blood. If I had to take one, I'd take Cashman, but I think it's very close. So I'm back up here. I've gone with 3 linebackers in a row. There are some nice D-line options available. I love Ed Oliver in this range. But there's a guy sitting here staring at me that Adam opened my eyes to. And I didn't want to like this guy. This guy is old as hell. He's about my age. So it's like, how in the world is this guy still doing it? I believe he finished as LB10 by Big 3 scoring last year, which almost made my eyeballs pop out of my head, cartoon style. It's Demario Davis. We're going with Demario Davis here in the 6th round. And I feel good about it because I think until the wheels fall off, this guy has proven consistently. Adam read the stats on one of our recent episodes. Year after year after year, going back 5 or 6 seasons, this dude has been productive. So give me Demario Davis here at the 606. Eric Kendricks goes at the 607. This is a guy that Mike was talking about earlier. Evan, I see you. You knew this one was coming, it sounds like.
I was hoping to get me some Kendricks at the 612 for sure.
Yeah, so Mike goes with Kendricks there at the 607. David, you're up here after Kyle. At the risk of tipping your picks, who are you hoping makes it to you when you're up here after Kyle?
It's just funny because I guess just really quickly as a housekeeping note, not that Evan is necessarily doing this, but you actually can call the sleeper API during the draft. So I've been doing that so I can at least like update and see like who's actually still here in the ADP. And I see that my rant about Trayvon Walker has scared him off because he is like a 3rd round ADP and he is still here. I kind of like Tremaine Edmonds if he makes it back to me. And one of the things that I like with linebackers, and Macri does such a good job with this in articles, is he's done some of the linebacker tackle efficiency based on defensive scheme. So he goes through, and I don't know where he finds this in PFF, whether this is on the customer-facing side or this is buried in the NFL team side, but sure enough, Kyle takes Edmonds.
He heard you mention that. I swear to God, he heard you mention that.
No, I'll just finish the point anyway, but he's gone through all that stuff in terms of like what coverages teams run and what the tackle efficiencies are. So teams that run off the top of my head, like cover 2, cover 3, those are better for linebackers than teams that are playing man. Mm-hmm. And when you go through, not to spoil Kyle's article this year or Macri's article this year, but one of the teams that shows up as one of the highest projected tackle efficiency teams is Chicago. So interesting year for some of the teams in that because the team that's number 1 on that is Dallas, and Mike has taken Kendricks here, but Kendricks usually lasts another round. So it's just kind of funny that you have the team that's like the highest projected tackle efficiency defense based on scheme, and they have like a completely clear, like no questions asked linebacker 1 there, and he's a 7th round pick. So
yep.
What I think I will do is take Walker. And one of the things I talked about in the Best Ball article this year was about ADP value, and just sort of like how much do you trust sort of like the wisdom of the crowds in these drafts. And it's something that I struggle with because in offensive best ball, like they're just doing so many drafts. There's just so many people who are doing content on the offensive side that you would just expect that like we're gradually getting sharper and sharper, and you can kind of trust the ADP. On the defensive side, I'm not sure. There's not as much of us doing this. There's people who have a couple different takes on terms of like what things you want to look at. Some people are very PFF focused. Some people are focused on some other things that I'm not sure what those are. But what we found last year was that teams that got a lot of ADP value ended up being very good teams on average. So sometimes in these drafts, I like sort of like bowing to the wisdom of the crowd. So that's what I'll do here with Walker.
Okay. So to answer your question there, who was it that had that question earlier? Nick. You can watch this channel if you only have time to watch one. This is a good one. We try to touch on every aspect of IDP fantasy football, but John's show, the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, touches on IDP as well. Football Guys is great. DLF's great. A lot of great sites and resources out there for IDP. So, little run here. After Kendricks and then Edmonds, you went with Trevon Walker, DJ Keltown. Johnny goes with the next safety off the board, Derwin James. And then Kenneth Murray goes to Jeff at the 6-11. Real quick here, Evan, we'll give you some time to think about your picks, so you don't have to answer this one. A couple questions here. Between Jack Gibbons, Damone Clark, and Leo Chenal, who do you take for your dynasty bench? David, we'll start with you on this one. Gibbons, Damone Clark, or Leo Chenal for a dynasty bench?
I think, hold on, where is that question again?
Jack Gibbons, Damone Clark, Leo Chenal.
Was Gibbons not in some of the discussion about being the play caller in Tennessee? So I don't know how much I believe that either, because I think the quote I saw from him was that he didn't really care who was the play caller, and that sounded a lot like a player who just definitely was not getting the dot. But there's been different reports about whether Hooker's going to get it, or I've seen some stuff about Murray. I think he has the cleanest path. There was that tweet the other day from the athletic writer for the Cowboys who was saying Kendricks was the middle, Clark was the Sam, and Demarion Overshown was the Will. And I know we shouldn't read into those too much in terms of what they mean and what teams actually do, but like traditionally the Sam is a little bit more of like more on the line, blitzing a little bit more, but also typically the one that's been coming off now that teams are sort of playing nickel as base packages. And then Chenal in Kansas, I mean, who knows? Like, you've got Bolton there. They gave Tranquil a whole bunch of money. So for me, of those three, I think it'd be Gibbons.
Okay, Gibbons. Eric, do you want Gibbons, Damone Clark, or Leo Chenal for a dynasty bench? You have to unmute yourself.
How many times are you going to tell me that?
You just have a button, like an easy button.
Yeah. I agree with DJ Keltown on that. It's Gibbons for me slightly. It's not, strong feeling on that, but I do wonder with Dallas, is Zimmer really going to bring back the 4-3 and play it a bunch? I just don't see that in today's NFL with all the passing that we're doing. So, boo bam. I think they're going to be playing some more nickel, and I think that's why I'd go Gibbons there. Chenal, like David said, you just don't know what they've got. Tranquil, they've got Bolton. Chenal's going to play some too. He likes to rotate his linebackers there, but I'd go Gibbons.
Yeah, I'll give my answer here quickly. I think it is Gibbons if you want 2024 production. If you're just looking for beyond this year, I think it's Leo Chenal. Adam and Bobby talked a lot on the last episode about Leo Chenal could be one of those guys like a Bobby Okereke who goes and gets an opportunity somewhere else and balls out. So if you're looking at beyond 2024, it's Leo Chenal by quite a bit, because I don't know how much runway we see with either Gibbons or Damone Clark past 2024. So, Evan, you got about 90 seconds left on your 6th round pick here, 6-12. Double up. Take us inside that beautiful brain of yours.
I'm going to reach down the board a little bit here. Okay. I don't love the D lines that are available here. Feels very flat to me. So I'm going to reach down and go with some of my guys at linebacker that I really like. I'm going to go with Caden Ellis, and I'm going to go with EJ Speed. Caden Ellis, I think he might – he's always been a guy that rushes the passer a lot, but now they bring in Raheem Morris, who last year helped Ernest Jones rush the passer a ton and put down a lot of tackles too. Ellis has struggled with tackles recently, but hopefully that can change this year. There isn't a lot of competition there. He'll be on the field a ton. They don't have any edge rushers, so he'll be rushing the passer too. EJ Speed is kind of the opposite. He is the tackle machine, and very high floor in my opinion.
Yeah, would you rather go Zaire Franklin in the 2nd round or EJ Speed in the 7th, Evan?
Give me the value.
I think so too. I mentioned that on the show. I think Zaire is going to be great. I think he was really banged up last year. But value-wise, I'll just take EJ Speed because there's a very real possibility, like we saw at the end of last season, where EJ Speed is the LB1 in Indy, the most productive linebacker. What about you, DJ Caltown? EJ Speed in the 7th, Zaire in the 2nd, neither? What are you thinking?
I guess just Speed because, like I've talked a couple times, I'm trying to never draft a linebacker in the 2nd round. So, yeah, like Speed is one of a lot of guys kind of in this range that I like as a guy who should project to play almost all of his team snaps. Poor Johnny set his cue probably for how these Madness drafts are probably going to go in real life, where there's probably going to be more defensive backs being drafted because we're going to have, a lot more people. A lot of people are probably going to be playing Madness who haven't done any of the other drafts, and they're just going to draft defensive backs. I think the normal person is going to look at this and say, what do you mean 50 defensive players went before Kyle Hamilton went?
It reminds me of when we had our all-22 draft and Johnny had to set a cue because I think he had a tee time, and he came back. He's like, well, I didn't realize I was getting six quarterbacks in this all-22 draft. So he's going to come back and be like, oh, my God, I have 6 DBs from rounds like 4 through 8. So much fun. Real quick, just some shade from Bobo, the ultimate troll tonight. No one cares about EJ Speed. Real quick here, David, you're on the clock, and we'll get to your thoughts here in just a second. But since you brought up, Evan, Caden Ellis, question here from MJ. What do you guys think about Devin White and Troy Anderson? I know they haven't been picked yet. Devin White's on my do not fly list. I just don't want any of the Eagles linebackers. I don't know how that's going to shake out. So I will just stay away entirely, and that includes Devin White. Troy Anderson, I love where he's going. I've taken some Troy Anderson, but more and more I've been drawn to what Evan just did, where I'm taking Caden Ellis instead.
Yeah, I actually would rather take Devin White than Troy Anderson.
Okay.
I am not convinced that Anderson's going to be on the field. Meanwhile, I actually feel fairly confident that Devin White's going to be on the field, at least to start the season. I know there's been some hype for like Zach Bond, and it's kind of a shit show there. None of the guys are that great. I'll take Devin White sometimes, but I still don't love him because his tackle efficiency has always been horrible.
Okay, so Devin White over Troy Anderson. David, you're on the clock here. You could go with either of these guys if you wanted to. Give us your take on Anderson and Devin White, and let us know what you're thinking here with your 7th round pick.
I have somebody else in the queue, but I don't mind either of the Eagles. They go late enough. Again, I feel like they're probably better bets than most to play most of the snaps. I can't think of who the 3rd Eagles linebacker is right now. I guess the risk is like I don't remember off the top of my head how.
I mean, Zach Bond's the one getting the hype, and if you ask Adam and Bobby, I think they're buying what the Eagles coaches are selling here with Zach Bond as a potential Alex Anzalone kind of late breakout type, but I think it's going to be probably Devin White and Nakobe Dean until proven otherwise.
But has Zach Bond ever played in his life?
I don't think so. I mean, not that I know of. I think I may have as many snaps as Zach Bond has in the NFL.
I will point out that Nakobe Dean doesn't have any more snaps in the NFL. Now it's been because of injuries. But.
That is true.
But at least Nakobe Dean, we saw that the Eagles tried to roll him out as a full-time player a couple times last year, and I guess it's always possible that they could turn around and say, we've seen enough from you from injuries that we just have had enough, and we're not going to do that with you this year. Maybe Devin White's 100% player and Nakobe Dean's 80. We'll never know. I mean, we had injury concerns with him before. Or when he was drafted. I took Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd, I guess, also had some injury concerns last year, but he played 100% of snaps pretty much any time he was healthy. So, another guy who's fine.
Who's fine. And doubling up on Jacksonville. We were saying, Josh Hines Allen and Foye Oluokun, sort of the twin heartbeats of this Jaguars defense. Like, who's done more for this Jacksonville defense during this sort of turnaround they've had with Trevor Lawrence at the helm, which, again, it hasn't soared to the heights, I think, that Jags fans would hope that it would have, but still it's better than it's been in years past. But you took the 2 guys that are kind of on that second tier. with Trayvon Walker and Devin Lloyd. Probably just because nice values here at this point in the draft.
Yeah, and I'm not too worried about anything with them like feeding off each other. I would be worried about that with two linebackers, right? Because if you're taking a guy, you're hoping that he ends up being really, really good, and the chances that both guys being really, really good aren't that great. Like you don't want them sort of equally being good. Kind of the same thing if you were taking. I'm trying to think of another example. The linebacker would be the most obvious one of just like if you're taking both linebackers and they're both going to play. Like really what you'd want to do is take one of them and hope that that guy smashes and the other guy sucks.
All right. Well, speaking of Zach Bond and speaking of Andrew Van Ginkel, Adam says Fangio found his AVG in Bond and he can't stop grinning. Maybe. We'll see. But speaking of AVG, that is my pick here in the 7th round. I'm going with the dual Desi. The Gink is off the board. Adam is crushed. I think he really thought he was going to have a shot at Van Gink there at 709, but I'm snatching him up. I don't know. I think he's going to be the edge 2 opposite Jonathan Grenard. I got a little bit of a discount here. Eric, I believe you went with, Grenard went at the end of the 3rd at 312. So you get AVG here 4 rounds later, just about. So I love that. Here we go. Adam's comment. Damn it. There goes the AVG Bond stack. Sorry, Adam. If we had trades in best ball, I would trade you, but alas, we do not. So yeah, I think he's going to be the edge 2. Now, the worry is what if Dallas Turner is just elite right out of the gate and he is the edge 2 opposite Jonathan Grenard. I acknowledge that that is a possibility, but I think of the 3 rookie edge rushers, the consensus seems to be that Dallas Turner is probably going to be the last one to get on the field, or is probably 3rd in the pecking order for playing time in year 1. So give me the guy that they brought in, gave a pretty nice deal to, and I think he's going to be on the field. Evan, am I crazy?
No, I totally agree with you. I do wish you went to a slightly better landing spot, but it's still pretty dang good. He'll be on the field, and he's one of those guys that he finds the ball. Among edge rushers, he ranked very highly in both tackle rate and pressure rate and all the PFF grades. He's just a stud that produces.
I agree. And we saw he's an upgrade over what they had at the edge 2 last season. You had Danielle Hunter at the 1, and then what was it? Wicked DJ Wanham at the 2. And, it's just been just a slew of Jags there. So I think he's an upgrade over that edge 2 that they had last year. So, Eric, what were you going to say?
I said, and the value is not only compared to Grenard, it's also compared to Dallas Turner, since Bobby took Dallas Turner in the round previous. Yep. Yeah. So.
Basically get Van Ginkel about a round later than Dallas Turner. So I think I have confidence that Van Gink is at least going to be early in the season, the edge 2 opposite Grenard. But you do worry a little bit that Dallas Turner turns it on late in the season and starts to eat into those snaps. But dual Desi, guy got a nice bag. I'll go with Van Gink. So, Eric, you're on the clock here with your 7th round pick, 7-10. What you thinking?
Well, I think I'm going to go back to the defensive line here, and there's actually several interior linemen that I like coming up. Ed Oliver, Hargrave, Derek Brown, Jonathan Allen. I think this time I'm going to go with Ed Oliver.
Okay.
In the middle of that Buffalo Bills defensive line.
I might just have to boot you from the stream and see if somebody else wants to jump in. Very mean. Don't like that at all. Yeah, I love Ed Oliver here, and you've started possibly a little D-tackle run because Hargrave goes right after you to Jake, and now Jax is up. He has gone the last 3 rounds, Jeffrey Simmons, Jordan Brooks, Carl Granderson. Eric, I know you guys were talking a little bit about Carl Granderson on the episode with Jeff, the buy, sell, hold episode. I think you weren't as big a fan of Carl Granderson. Was he one of the guys you were selling?
Yeah, but that's because he's normally going in the 4th round. I don't mind him in the 6th round where he went here, but I've seen him as high as a 1st round pick early in the drafts. But typically he's going in the 4th round range. But yeah, 6th is fine where he went. I just think there's people that like him more than I do. Is why he was a sell.
Yeah, agreed. He's got some truthers out there, some Carl Granderson fans.
I think he's kind of a floor play, which is not really what I'm looking for out of an edge rusher in the 6th round.
Yeah, that makes sense. Matt Milano goes after him. There goes Devin White, and then Ivan Pace. So we wondered where Ivan Pace would go in relation to Blake Cashman. So Cashman goes at the 6:03. Ivan Pace goes at the 8:02. Eric, you're back up on the clock. Are you going to double dip and grab you another D tackle?
Yeah, I think I am. There's linebackers. There's a couple that are somewhat interesting, but I have them farther down. I think I'm going to go with Derek Brown and double up on my defensive tackles here.
That's nice. That's very nice. I like Derek Brown a lot there.
I've got a whole stable of defensive tackles on my team now between Mads and Oliver and Brown.
Yeah, I was
Brown's another one of those. He's more of a floor play. He's more tackles. He doesn't get a lot of sacks, but in the 8th round, he's fine.
All right, so we have Adam back up. David, do you think any DBs go this round?
Yeah, I think so. When I looked at some of the last year of Madness versus normal drafts or whatever, the DBs in the Madness drafts were going 2 rounds ahead of the other ones. So there you go, you get one there. So yeah, this seems like a reasonable spot that if you want to take one defensive back in your first couple picks, this isn't a bad range to do it.
Yeah, because I'm looking at a lot of the guys here, Adam's best ball rankings. If you're tuning in for the first time, Adam has amazing best ball rankings over at the IDPshow.com. $5 a month. You get access to the ADP as well. Don't trust Sleeper's ADP. You're going to be in deep trouble if you go in without a list of players. Like Adam said, Devon with him spoon in the rankings if you're looking for him. So Junior Colson goes to Bobo at the 8:05. Oh boy. So I'm kind of looking at Adam's best ball rankings right now. And what I'm struggling with is a lot of the guys. He has Brian Branch at 73 overall, safety 4. And you look at some of the guys that are kind of around him, and I just feel like I'm kind of jumping down into the Jalen Carter, Jonathan Allen, Preston Smith, Deron Payne, Leonard Floyd. And so that's the game you have to play with best ball, especially when it comes to roster construction. So, DJ KT, you're our roster construction guy here. Do you skip over DBs that, at least by one ranking set, are a lot higher rated than some of these other defensive lineman options down the board? How do you play that game as you're going through your drafts?
I often try and play games with the ADP and to see if I can catch a guy who's falling if I'm going to draft one early. And I'm not totally against it, right? One of the things I like thinking about with these is if you imagine your draft as an auction, except that instead of you have an auction, you've got assigned values for every pick. So your first round pick's worth $10, your second round pick's worth $9, whatever the case may be. Overall, I think you want to spend as little as possible on the defensive back, but that doesn't preclude you from spending an early pick on one, as long as it doesn't turn into one in round 5 and one in round 7 and one in round 9 and then all the way down, because then that's when I feel you start to fall behind at other positions. But this is kind of the interesting range I was talking about earlier, where the defensive linemen in here generally are a lot grosser feeling than what you have higher up. Once you get later down, there starts to be some pure upside guys you can take, but we're kind of in a funny range where you have elite defensive backs. You still have linebackers that you think are pretty good bets to be full-time players and should score a bunch of points as long as they're healthy. And then you have defensive linemen who have a lot of questions. So I definitely don't blame anybody for taking a defensive back in this range, and especially here in Madness, right? Because, again, construction-wise, you just have less roster spots. You lose the ability to solve defensive back with just volume. So you're going to have to do more with less roster spots. So if you do want to take a guy and make that bet, again, especially in Madness where you're trying to win first place overall, not just your league, making a bet on one guy that like this is my bet to be the defensive back one, I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm really torn right here because Brian Branch is still on the board. He is the last of that kind of top 4 tier for me of Winfield, Kyle Hamilton. I see is really in a tier by themselves. Then you have Derwin, Jesse Bates mixed in. But on the cornerback side, Devon Witherspoon, Brian Branch, if you consider him a cornerback, are at the top of the mountain for me. So I'm really giving a lot of thought to Brian Branch here. But
Branch is already around past ADP.
I know. So I don't know if he's going to make it back around in round 9. My guess is no. But Bobby, with a great comment here, Josh going to take Antoine Bethea. He is still in sleeper, and that's why you need a good list of players. I'm going to go with one of my favorite picks here in the mid-rounds. I'm going to go Jonathan Allen to grab another defensive lineman. I don't know. I think Jonathan Allen's being slept on a little bit, and I just ultimately feel better going back to the D-line well, since I only have 2 at this point, like dedicated defensive linemen. I've got a dual Desi guy there in Van Gink. So Adam said Branch is not getting past Johnny. Entirely possible. We'll see if Brian Branch goes off to Johnny there at the, up in a couple picks. So after I went with Jonathan Allen, we saw Kyle Duggar and then Trenton Simpson go off the board to Kyle at 808. Evan, what do you think about Trenton Simpson, 8th round? You in on Simpson as the Pat Queen replacement in Baltimore?
I like that value quite a bit, yeah. We're kind of getting to the end of this linebacker tier where you start to kind of question if they're going to be full-time or not. But I don't really believe, the reports that Simpson might not start. I think he'll be 100% of the snaps. And he's also like a super athlete. So I want those guys on my team too. I feel really good about Trenton Simpson in the 8th.
Yeah. David, you're on the clock. I want to hear what you're thinking. But what do you think about another Mike Willard favorite, Kyle Duggar, going as his 8th round pick? I believe that is the, DB 7 or DB 6?
Yeah, I like Duggar this year too, so that's fine.
All right, that was about as good of a endorsement as you're going to get from DJ Caltown.
Yeah,
I think
I've been
on
very
DBs.
inconsistent here tonight. I've had very elaborate thoughts on some players and absolutely nothing on others.
You can tell he's drafting a lot of Kyle Duggar. So what are you thinking here?
I think I actually have drafted Kyle Duggar a couple times.
I want to see that exposure to see if that's true.
We can look it up. Honestly, with how many linebackers have been taken, I feel like I've fallen behind at the position a little bit more than I would like. And as much as I want to take Jack Campbell here, I just don't have that much confidence in how much he's really going to play, although he should, right? Like, first rounders for the most part at linebacker have always gotten a shot at some point in their rookie contract of being a full-time player. So having said that, I have actually talked myself into that, so I will take Jack Campbell. But the other person I was considering here was Dean, that we talked about a little bit already, that just we saw the Eagles trust him with 100% of snaps before. He got hurt a couple times, so we'll see. I was hoping Milano would come back because this is about the spot for Milano's ADP, and I think he is going too low. Like, I think Jax is right to take him there. Yeah. Milano's already doing individual drills at Bills practice. And for a player that age, there's just no reason for him to be doing that unless they're really confident that he's ready to go for the start of the season. So if he's a 100% snap player, he really shouldn't be in round 8. He should be much higher up. Like, he probably goes closer to Bernard if we had full confidence that he was healthy.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think Milano's going to start the season. I still like Bernard there a lot as the LB1, but Matt Milano's a delicious LB2. So I like to think that Johnny's queue is set up where he's not like trying to take DBs, but it just so happens that every single guy ahead of these DBs is getting picked off, and it's just like the worst possible luck. But Johnny goes with his 4th straight DB, so revenge of the queue, Budda Baker, and then Jeff goes with Brian Branch. So Evan, that was kind of the last, like, at least in my eyes, elite DB option off the board. You are wrapping us up here at the 8-12. So who are you closing us out with tonight?
Yeah, so I've gone 4 straight linebackers here. I'm feeling a little behind at D line, but I'm fine doing that because these kind of rounds 9 through 12 are a range that I love drafting these slept on edge rushers. For example, some guys like Malcolm Kuntz, Danico Autry, Zadarius Smith, Demarcus Lawrence, Odafe Owe, Preston Smith, all those guys. I have tons of shares. But right now, I'm going to go with Jalen Carter
Okay,
and
beautiful.
make the bet that he will be everything we expected him to be as a prospect.
From David Lewis, Fangio is going to make Carter play more snaps, hoping he goes off this year and goes off the board here in the 8th round. So
PFF grades are really good as a rookie.
yeah, so we're going to pause it there, guys. Jalen Carter wraps us up. So from TJ Watt to Jalen Carter, those are the first 8 rounds of our IDP Madness mock draft. Gentlemen, as we close out here, let's just go around the horn. And as we get our congratulations from Addy, well done, lads. Tell us how you're feeling about your team. We'll go in draft order. Evan, you were kicking us off from the 101. I'll give the recap here. You went TJ Watt, Hassan Reddick, Chris Jones, JOK, Quay Walker, Caden Ellis, EJ Speed, and Jalen Carter. How you feeling about your team so far?
I like it. It's not my favorite. This was a really sharp room. A lot of times I can get Quinn and Williams at the turn. That I would have really liked that a lot instead of taking Reddick there. I love my linebackers, of course, but I would just like to. I would have liked to have gotten one other D line in kind of those early to mid rounds.
Okay, David, you went from the 104, Micah Parsons, Brian Burns, DeForest Buckner, Logan Wilson, George Karlaftis, Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd, Jack Campbell. How you feeling?
I think this is a good enough start. Like, this is how I usually like building my teams, where you start with a bunch of defensive linemen and then you try and rush a bunch of linebackers in right before you run out of guys that we sort of have confidence in of being full-time players. And we've probably gotten pretty close to that point. I don't know if 3 is quite enough. I don't know how I'd feel about this in a real Madness draft, but I think this is a good start, and based on some of the stuff that I've done on best ball research, this to me is very much in line with what is a good construction.
And we're all about a good construction on this show, David. So you're feeling good. I'm feeling good. I was drafting from the 107 in between Mike and Bobby, and went with Aiden Hutchinson, Trey Hendrickson, Pat Queen, Frankie Louvu, Josie Jewell, Demario Davis, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Jonathan Allen. So I will say, kind of wish I'd gone Brian Branch, but not going to cry over not drafting a DB. But it was a real toss-up there. I think that's the area where I think, for me at least, DB is going to be on the table in these Madness drafts, which is earlier typically than what I do in most best ball drafts. This is probably my first Trey Hendrickson share. I'm not typically a guy who is going after Trey Hendrickson, but then I look at the guys that went after him, and I'm like, oh yeah, I would much rather have Hendrickson over all the guys that went. So thank you all for peer pressuring me into taking Trey Hendrickson there. I appreciate it. And yes, I really love, this is why I wanted to go DL early, because you look at the linebackers there from rounds 3 through 6, Pat Queen, Frankie Louvu, Josie Jewell, Demario Davis. It's just a great area for linebackers that we really don't have a lot of question marks about. So feeling good so far. We'll see if that continues with these next couple streams that we do. Eric, you were at the 110. You went Josh Hines Allen, Bobby Okereke, Quincy Williams, Jermaine Johnson, Dexter Lawrence, Josh Sweat. Oh, sorry. I'm looking at Jake's team. You did not go with any of those guys. Thank you. You went instead with Daniil Hunter, Ernest Jones, Harold Landry, Justin Matabikwe, Uchenna Nwosu, Blake Cashman, Ed Oliver, Derek Brown. D-Tackle City up in here. How are you feeling?
I feel pretty good about the first 7. Derek Brown, I haven't taken too often in drafts. Probably should have gone with more of an upside guy there than Derek Brown based on the other guys I have on my roster here, but it's not a bad pick there. Really like getting Hunter where I got him. Now I've lost my picks.
Yeah, you were
I liked
Ernest
getting,
Jones, Harold Landry, Justin Matabikwe, Uchenna Nwosu, Blake Cashman, Ed Oliver, and Derek Brown.
Yeah, I thought going into this being the 10th pick, I was probably going to end up with Roquan or Warner or somebody like that, possibly in the first round. And as David's been saying, I in the first round, I really prefer to go defensive lineman. I like the Ernest Jones pick, Harold Landry. Really like Harold Landry and Nwosu this year. They got the dual Desi. They got kind of the boom weeks. So I think I got a good mix of boom and some steady points.
All right. Well, Eric, I'll just keep it on you. I always like to ask this when we have a draft. What was your favorite pick of these first 8 rounds of yours?
Of my picks?
Yes.
I
know my pick of your favorite picks. It's Harold Landry.
That's what I was going to pick.
Yeah, that's a nice pick.
Yeah, I was happy to get him there. I appreciate Bobby taking Winfield there so I could have a chance at him, I suppose, but have him fall a little bit to me.
All right, Evan, who was your favorite pick of the guys you selected?
JOK at 412.
Damn right it is. Mine was Frankie Louvu going at, let's see, he was the 406. So love him in a best ball format. David,
really
what about
like that
you?
pick.
Thank you, Eric. What about you? Favorite pick?
My favorite pick is Karloftis with honorable mention to Trayvon Walker after I scared everybody off of him and took him after EP.
That's what you can do with these shows. You can spook the room a little bit.
My real favorite pick, though, is Bobby Gang, Rashawn Gary in the 4th.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah. That was probably the best pick of the draft.
So, Bobo, you went and redeemed. You totally redeemed yourself. And Bobo had some nice feedback as well. I'm standing up clapping.
Also,
I don't know if that was for his Rashawn Gary pick or for our picks, but probably for his pick as well. Yes, Evan.
Probably. I also got to give Jake a shout out for taking Dexter Lawrence. You know, it's my guy. So
sexy.
If he had gotten to me, I was going to pass on him just so you could talk about your guy.
I end up with him in every draft. Even if I pass on him, he just comes back to me. I don't understand.
He's like a boomerang.
Meant to be.
Always comes back. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to this debut episode of IDP Drafts. We are going to be, like I said, doing every week from now through the end of the offseason, talking IDP best ball and looking at all different facets of this great game that we love so much. Like I mentioned earlier, roster construction, player exposure. We'll do another round of our favorite picks from probably rounds like 12 through 20 or something like that. We did another show earlier this year in the IDP show feed looking at mine and Adam's favorite picks from rounds 1 through 10. A lot of fun. We'll probably do something similar for that middle of the draft because as you all are going to see, the middle of these drafts is really where you have to earn your stripes. So make sure you tune in for that. Our next group doing the middle 8 rounds of IDP Madness will be Jeff Pomazal, Jake Colhagen, Kyle Bellyfuel, and Bobby Reynolds here in a couple weeks. So we will have episodes coming back at you all every week for the rest of the offseason. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@theIDPshow. We'll also have a podcast feed if you'd like to listen to this. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me for this debut episode. For Evan, Eric, and David, this is Josh signing off. We will catch you all next time here on IDP Drafts.